The first time Ambassador Velka heard human laughter, he thought something was malfunctioning. The sound came through the Zaltharian Empire's long-range cultural monitors, a cacophony of bizarre vocalizations that seemed to serve no evolutionary purpose. He adjusted his sensory implants and listened again. No, it was genuine. These creatures actually made these noises voluntarily. Play that transmission again, he commanded his subordinate, a junior analyst named Threxus who specialized in primitive civilizations. The monitor flickered, showing a human entertainment program. Creatures sat before glowing rectangles, watching other creatures fall down, collide with objects, and perform acts of spectacular stupidity. The observers made those sounds, laughter, apparently finding joy in witnessing failure. They call it comedy, Ambassador, Threxus explained, his mandibles clicking with barely suppressed amusement. They deliberately create scenarios designed to showcase incompetence. Velka's three eyes widened. In all his centuries serving the Empire, he had never encountered a species that celebrated its own foolishness. The Zaltharians prided themselves on efficiency, logic, and order. These humans seemed to worship chaos. Over the following weeks, the Empire's monitors intercepted thousands of broadcasts. Reality programs showing humans competing for meaningless titles. News channels reporting their petty territorial disputes. And perhaps most baffling, millions of videos featuring small predatory mammals that humans kept in their homes for companionship. The High Council's reaction was unanimous. They laughed. It started as a ripple of clicking mandibles during a routine session. Then someone projected the cat videos onto the Grand Chamber's display screens. Soon, the entire council chamber echoed with Zaltharian amusement, a sound like wind chimes made of metal scraping together. This species broadcasts its dysfunction into the cosmos, Council Elder Morphix declared, wiping moisture from his primary eye. They are a case study in evolutionary failure. We must study them. And so it was decided. Not an invasion. Not a conquest. An observation. The Zaltharian delegation arrived on Earth on a Tuesday morning, their vessels descending over major population centers with the subtlety of floating monuments. Velka emerged from the primary ship in New York City, his tall, crystalline form refracting sunlight into rainbow patterns across the stunned crowd below. Greetings, humans, he announced through translation devices that made his voice sound like a choir of bells. We come as friends and observers. Your culture fascinates us. Dr. Rebecca Torres watched the broadcast from her cramped office at Columbia University. As one of Earth's few xenolinguists, a field that had been purely theoretical until approximately 3 hours ago, she understood the undertones in Velka's speech that most humans missed. The slight emphasis on fascinates. The pause before culture. The choice of observers rather than visitors. They think we're entertainment, she realized, her stomach tightening. Within days, the Zaltharians established cultural exchange posts across the planet. They set up monitoring stations in cities, parks, and even residential areas. They attended sporting events, watched humans shop, and recorded every mundane aspect of daily life. But Rebecca noticed something crucial: they never asked permission. They simply watched, like scientists observing bacteria in a petri dish. The broadcast started shortly after. Somewhere in the Zaltharian Empire, millions of aliens tuned in to watch Life on Earth, a reality show featuring actual humans going about their actual lives. The entertainment networks added commentary, with alien hosts making jokes about human inefficiency, emotional instability, and tendency towards self-destructive behavior. Earth's government scrambled to respond. Some wanted to fight. Others urged cooperation. Most were simply paralyzed by the sheer impossibility of the situation. But in a nondescript building in Colorado, a different response was forming. James Whitmore had spent 20 years in military intelligence, much of it analyzing threats that never materialized. Now, facing a threat nobody had imagined, he found himself strangely calm. "They're not taking us seriously," he told his assembled team of scientists, military personnel, and intelligence analysts. "That's their mistake." On the screens around them, Zaltharian observation posts glowed like alien lighthouses. Whitmore's team had been tracking them, measuring their energy signatures, documenting their patrol patterns. The aliens were confident, almost careless. They didn't bother with heavy security because they didn't consider humans a threat. "Every observation post contains quantum communication relays," reported Dr. Helena Vasquez, a physicist who'd been analyzing alien technology. "They're connected in a network. It's elegant, efficient, and completely dependent on synchronized frequencies." Whitmore leaned forward. "Weaknesses?" "Potentially," Helena said carefully. If someone could disrupt the synchronization, the entire network would collapse, finished Marcus Chen, a 23-year-old hacker who'd been recruited after breaking into 3 government databases just to prove he could. Give me access to one relay, and I could write a virus that propagates through the quantum entanglement. They'd never see it coming. Rebecca Torres, who'd been invited to join the team as a cultural liaison, spoke up. We need to be careful. If we act too soon, they'll adapt. We need them to remain confident. Arrogant. You mean we play dumb? Whitmore said. I mean we let them think they're right about us, Rebecca corrected. Let them laugh. Let them think we're helpless. Meanwhile, we learn everything we can. Whitmore nodded slowly. We become the joke while we prepare the punchline. 3 months into the occupation, the Zaltharians grew bolder. What began as passive observation evolved into active participation in what they called cultural documentation projects. Ambassador Velka announced a new phase during a global broadcast, his crystalline form shimmering with what Rebecca had learned to recognize as smug satisfaction. To better understand humanity, we will create interactive experiences, he declared. Selected humans will participate in educational exhibitions across our empire. Think of it as cultural exchange. Rebecca watched the broadcast from the underground facility that had become her second home. Around her, Whitmore's team monitored the translation with growing horror. The Zaltharians weren't proposing exchange programs. They were proposing human zoos. They want to put us in cages, Marcus muttered, his fingers already flying across his keyboard. Literally put us on display for alien tourists. Not cages, Threxis, Velka's subordinate, had explained during a press conference. Habitat recreations. Humans will live as they normally do, just, in controlled environments where other species can observe and learn. The first habitat was constructed in what had been Central Park. Zaltharian technology transformed 50 acres into a transparent dome filled with relocated humans who'd been promised employment and housing. From the outside, aliens could watch humans eat, sleep, work, and interact. The Zaltharians installed translation devices so visitors could understand human conversations, turning private moments into public entertainment. They're treating us like animals, Helena said, her voice shaking with rage as they watched footage of alien tourists pointing and laughing at a human family having dinner. They always were, Rebecca replied quietly. Now they're just being honest about it. But while the world watched in helpless anger, Marcus had been busy. Over the past 3 months, he'd done something the Zaltharians never anticipated. He'd learned their language, their code, their entire digital infrastructure. Every observation post they erected, every monitor they installed, became an access point for him. I'm in, he announced one night, his screen glowing with alien script. I've mapped their entire quantum network. Every relay, every hub, every connection. It's beautiful, really. Perfectly synchronized, zero redundancy. Which means? Whitmore asked. Which means it's fragile. One virus, properly designed, could cascade through the entire system. Their ships, their weapons, their communication, everything runs on this network. Dr. Vasquez leaned over Marcus's shoulder, studying the schematic. How long would it take to deploy? Once we have physical access to a primary relay? 60 seconds. And how long until they detect it? Marcus smiled grimly. They won't. Not until it's too late. See, Zaltharian AI operates on pure logic. They can't conceive of code that deliberately contradicts itself. But humans? He pulled up a new screen showing something that looked like digital chaos. We're masters of contradiction. The virus Marcus had created was a paradox-given form. It would tell the Zaltharian systems to simultaneously execute and not execute commands, to connect and disconnect, to function and fail. The logical aliens had built their technology assuming logic. Marcus had weaponized the logic. Rebecca spent those months doing something equally important. She'd volunteered as a cultural liaison, which gave her access to Zaltharian facilities and personnel. She smiled, she answered questions, she played the role of the friendly, cooperative human. And she listened. She learned that the Zaltharians possessed technology far beyond Earth's, but they lacked imagination. Their military tactics hadn't changed in centuries because they'd never needed to change. They overwhelmed opponents with superior firepower and technology. The concept of asymmetric warfare was completely foreign to them. She also learned they were planning something bigger. Rumors circulated among the alien observers about a preservation initiative. When she finally hacked into Velka's personal files, using techniques Marcus taught her, she discovered the truth. The Zaltharians planned to relocate humanity entirely. In 2 months, they would begin moving humans to a designated preservation world, a planet they'd terraformed specifically to serve as a living museum. Earth itself would become Zaltharian territory, its resources harvested, its ecosystem studied and catalogued. "They are stealing our planet," she told Whitmore, her hands trembling as she handed him the translated documents. "And they're calling it conservation." Whitmore read in silence. When he looked up, his expression was carved from stone. "Timeline? We have 6 weeks before they start the relocation. Once that begins, we lose our advantage. They'll separate us, scatter us across their empire. Then we move in 4 weeks, Whitmore decided. We hit them before they're ready." The plan came together like pieces of a puzzle humans had been assembling without realizing it. Marcus would deploy his virus through the Central Park Habitat's observation equipment. The Zaltharians monitored those humans so closely, they'd never suspect the monitoring devices themselves could be compromised. Helena's team had reverse-engineered enough Zaltharian technology to create weapons that could overload their shields. And Rebecca had identified every key facility on Earth that needed to be neutralized simultaneously. But they needed more than technology. They needed coordination across a divided world. Whitmore sent out carefully encrypted messages to military leaders, resistance cells, and underground organizations across every continent. The message was simple: 4 weeks. Be ready. Project Punchline. The name was Marcus's idea. "If they think we're a joke," he'd said, "let's make sure we deliver a killer punchline." 3 weeks before the planned strike, something unexpected happened. A young Zaltharian technician named Corville approached Rebecca after one of her liaison sessions. His crystalline structure pulsed with colors she'd learned to associate with anxiety. "Dr. Torres," he said quietly, "I need to speak with you. Privately." They met in an abandoned subway tunnel, far from any observation devices. Corville's confession tumbled out in a rush. "Not all Zaltharians agree with this. Some of us believe what the Empire is doing is wrong. We are becoming the thing we fought against centuries ago, conquerors who justify cruelty with superiority." "Why tell me?" Rebecca asked. "Because I have accessed restricted files. The Preservation Initiative is not the end. It is the beginning. Once humans are relocated, the Empire plans to do the same to 17 other species classified as primitive. You are the test case." Rebecca felt cold spread through her chest. "How many others like you?" "Dozens. Maybe hundreds. We cannot stop the Empire, but we can help you." "Then help us with this." She handed him a data chip. "Make sure the right people see it." The chip contained everything. Every piece of evidence showing the Empire's true intentions. Every document proving the observation was always meant to end in conquest. Corville would leak it through Zaltharian networks, ensuring their own people would see what their empire had become. As the 4-week deadline approached, Earth held its breath. Humans around the world prepared in secret. Weapons were distributed. Communication networks established. Emergency plans finalized. The Zaltharians noticed nothing. They were too busy laughing at their exhibits, too confident in their superiority. The night before the strike, Whitmore gathered his core team. "Tomorrow, we show them what humans really are. Not when we're comfortable or content, but when we're cornered. When we're desperate. When we're angry." Marcus cracked his knuckles. Time to deploy the punchline. Helena checked her weapon one last time. For Earth. Rebecca thought of every human in every habitat, every person who'd been mocked and belittled. For everyone who's ever been underestimated. Whitmore nodded. "At dawn, humanity stops being the joke. We become the warning." Dawn broke over Earth with deceptive calm. In the Central Park habitat, families ate breakfast while alien tourists watched from beyond the transparent walls. Ambassador Velka prepared for another day of broadcasts, already planning his speech about the upcoming preservation initiative. Across the planet, Zaltharian observation posts hummed with their usual efficiency, their quantum networks pulsing with synchronized perfection. None of them noticed Marcus Chen walking casually into the habitat's maintenance area, a modified tablet hidden under his jacket. "Beginning upload now," he whispered into his concealed communicator. His fingers danced across the screen, and the virus he'd spent months perfecting began its journey into the Zaltharian network. The code looked like static to any scanner, meaningless noise that slipped past every security protocol. But once inside, it would become something else entirely. 60 seconds. That's all it took. "Upload complete," Marcus confirmed, stepping back outside. Viruses propagating through quantum entanglement. Estimated full network penetration in 90 minutes. Around the world, teams moved into position. In Beijing, Colonel Zheng Wei led a strike force toward the primary Zaltharian command center. In London, Captain Amora Okonkwo's unit surrounded the Empire's diplomatic compound. In Sao Paulo, Commander Rafael Santos prepared to seize the alien technology depot. Dozens of cities, hundreds of targets, thousands of soldiers moving in perfect synchronization. Whitmore watched it all from the Colorado facility, surrounded by screens showing operations across the globe. All units, this is command. You are authorized to proceed. Make every shot count. At exactly 6:47 a.m. Eastern Time, humanity stopped pretending to be harmless. The first sign something was wrong came when Velka tried to contact his flagship orbiting above Earth. Static. He tried the backup frequency. More static. He turned to Threxis, whose crystalline structure had gone pale with alarm. Ambassador, all communication channels are down. The quantum network is... I don't understand. The readings make no sense. On Threxis's monitor, Zaltharian code writhed like living things, executing and unexecuting commands in impossible loops. Ship systems reported being simultaneously online and offline. Weapons were both armed and disarmed. Navigation systems calculated the same position as two different locations. It's as if the network itself has gone insane, Threxis whispered. Not insane, Rebecca Torres said, stepping from behind them. She'd been in the building under the guise of a scheduled liaison meeting. Human. You're experiencing what we call cognitive dissonance. Your machines are having a nervous breakdown. Velka spun toward her. What have you done? What we do best. We created chaos. She pressed a button on her own device. Every observation post, every ship, every weapon system you have runs on perfect logic. We taught them to be illogical. Congratulations, Ambassador. Your technology just learned to doubt itself. Outside, the first explosions lit the morning sky. Human forces struck Zaltharian facilities with surgical precision. But they weren't using conventional weapons alone. Helena's team had created something special, resonance bombs that specifically targeted the crystalline structures of Zaltharian technology. The devices emitted frequencies that made alien equipment literally vibrate itself apart. In orbit, the Zaltharian flagship Eternal Glory experienced its own catastrophe. Captain Xylith watched in horror as his ship's AI began arguing with itself, displaying contradictory commands on every screen. The engines fired randomly. Weapons systems locked and unlocked. Life support fluctuated between nominal and critical. Shut down the AI core, he ordered desperately. Sir, the AI controls the shutdown sequence. We cannot shut it down without using it to shut itself down. That's impossible logic. Exactly, said a human voice over the communication system. It was Marcus, broadcasting from Earth. Welcome to humanity's greatest weapon, the paradox. Your perfect minds can't handle imperfection. Your logical systems can't process illogic. And your ordered society is about to meet organized chaos. What happened next would be studied by xenohistorians for centuries. Earth didn't just fight back. Earth weaponized every aspect of human nature that the Zaltharians had mocked. Human unpredictability became tactical randomness that no Zaltharian computer could predict. Human emotional volatility translated into psychological warfare that terrified the logical aliens. Human tendency towards self-destructive behavior manifested as suicide attacks on critical infrastructure, something the self-preservation-focused Zaltharians never anticipated. In New York, the Habitat dome shattered as humans inside used improvised weapons to break free. The zoo animals became insurgents, turning every piece of alien technology into weapons or bombs. The Zaltharians had studied human violence extensively but only as abstract data. Experiencing it firsthand paralyzed them. Colonel Zheng's forces in Beijing captured the Zaltharian command center after a brutal 15-minute firefight. Captain Okonkwo's team in London used the aliens' own diplomatic protocols against them, broadcasting a challenge to single combat that Zaltharian honor codes couldn't refuse. Commander Santos in Sao Paulo simply walked into the technology depot with a deadman switch and 30 pounds of explosives, daring the aliens to stop him. They didn't. They evacuated. And Santos's team seized enough Zaltharian weapons to arm 3 cities. But the true horror came from Whitmore's final ace. Over the past months, his team had secretly modified every piece of alien observation equipment on Earth. Every camera, every sensor, every monitor. They'd been recording everything, building a comprehensive database of Zaltharian biology, psychology, and technology. Deploy Phase 2, Whitmore ordered. Across Earth, modified transmission towers activated. They began broadcasting directly to the Zaltharian Empire itself, sending carefully crafted messages designed by Rebecca and her xenopsychology team. Images of Zaltharian casualties. Videos of their technology failing. Recordings of their leaders panicking. But most devastating were the philosophical attacks. Messages that questioned the Empire's moral authority. Broadcasts highlighting the contradiction between their claimed enlightenment and their colonial actions. Rebecca had studied Zaltharian culture deeply enough to know their society valued logical consistency above all else. She'd found every inconsistency, every hypocrisy, every logical flaw in their justifications. She weaponized their own philosophy against them. Ambassador Velka, detained in his own facility by human guards, watched the broadcasts with something humans would recognize as despair. His people were receiving proof that their empire had become what they'd always claimed to oppose, conquerors who masked cruelty with noble rhetoric. Why? He asked Rebecca as she supervised the operation. You could have negotiated. We would have listened eventually. Would you? Rebecca turned to face him. Or would you have just found more sophisticated ways to convince yourselves that exploiting us was for our own good? You made us the joke, Ambassador. We became the punchline. The battle lasted 72 hours. By the end, 60% of Zaltharian forces had retreated from Earth. 20% had surrendered, their ships dead in space, their AI systems permanently compromised by logic bombs. The remaining 20% were destroyed, their crystalline structures shattered by resonance weapons or their ships torn apart by conventional arms. The Eternal Glory, once the pride of the Zaltharian fleet, drifted as a ghost ship. Captain Xylith managed one final transmission before his crew evacuated in escape pods. To all vessels of the Galactic Council, Earth is not what we believed. Humanity is not weak. They are the apocalypse wearing a smile. Do not engage them. Do not mock them. Do not underestimate them. They will teach you what we learned, that civilization is not about technology or order. It's about will. And humans have more will than all of us combined. In the aftermath, 17 alien species received the footage of Earth's counterattack. The recordings showed everything: the impossible tactics, the psychological warfare, the systematic destruction of a superior force by an supposedly inferior one. Attached to each transmission was a message in 847 different languages. Earth does not seek war. But Earth will not tolerate subjugation. We are willing to coexist with the galaxy. But on our terms, as equals, with dignity. Anyone who treats humanity as entertainment will become our case study in regret. Marcus Chen added his own postscript, a virus embedded in the transmission itself. Not destructive, but instructive. Any civilization that tried to attack Earth after watching the footage would find their computers displaying a single message: "Are you absolutely certain you want to do this?" Most decided they were not certain at all. Corville, the young Zaltharian who'd helped Rebecca, sought asylum on Earth. He testified before the reformed Galactic Council about the Empire's crimes. His testimony, combined with the leaked documents and Earth's military demonstration, led to the Empire's dissolution. The preservation initiative was abandoned. 17 species were freed from planned relocations. 6 months later, Rebecca stood in what had been the Central Park habitat. The dome was gone, replaced by a memorial. Names of the humans and aliens who died during the conflict were carved into black stone. Above them, in letters that caught the sunlight, was a single warning: never mistake kindness for weakness, or chaos for helplessness. Humanity remembers. Ambassador Velka, awaiting trial for war crimes, had one final conversation with Rebecca through a secured communication channel. "I still do not understand," he admitted. "How did a species so divided, so chaotic, so self-destructive, defeat us so completely?" Rebecca smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Because you never understood what you were watching, Ambassador. Our chaos isn't a weakness. It's a feature. Our contradictions aren't flaws. They're adaptations. You built a society on order and logic. We built ours on surviving constant disorder. When you pushed us, we didn't break. We just showed you what controlled chaos really means." "The apocalypse," Velka whispered, understanding finally dawning. "Not the apocalypse," Rebecca corrected. "Just humanity. We tried to tell you through our broadcasts, our entertainment, our art. We're a species that laughs at death, makes games of war, and finds comedy in tragedy. You thought that made us weak. It makes us survivors. She ended the call and walked out into the sunlight, where Whitmore, Marcus, and Helena waited. The council wants to establish formal diplomatic relations, Whitmore reported. They're proposing a treaty. Equal partnership, mutual defense, cultural exchange, the real kind. And if they violate it? Helena asked. Marcus grinned. I've got 300 new viruses ready to deploy. Call it insurance. Rebecca looked up at the sky, where somewhere among the stars, the galaxy was learning a new lesson. We didn't want to be the monster. But if they forced us to choose between being prey or predator. We chose predator, Whitmore finished. And we made sure they'd never forget it. The galaxy didn't forget. Earth's counterattack became legend. The war that lasted 3 days and changed the balance of power for 3 centuries. Humanity's name became synonymous with a simple message. Dangerous when provoked, devastating when underestimated, apocalyptic when cornered. The Zaltharians had called humanity a joke. Earth delivered the punchline. And the galaxy would spend generations trying not to laugh at the wrong species ever again. Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.